Hello and welcome to Natural Balance, Connect Body, Mind, and Spirit. I'm your co-host, Mia Sines, and today I get the great pleasure of interviewing Ellison from More Soul, Please. I love the way that the topic of soul is brought into our everyday life and how we can reconnect to our body, mind, and spirit. So I want to introduce you right now to Alison. Welcome, Alison. It's wonderful to have you.
Oh, thank you, Mia. It's just terrific to be here, and it's a wonderful topic, so I'm glad to share.
Thank you. Now, would you share with us, I know, of course, but would you share with the audience how you created or what inspired you to create a business called More Soul, Please, helping people gain connection to their soul?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to. And I do like to say that my mess became my masterpiece, which became my mission. And a lot of it did come from a health and wellness perspective. And from there, I've always been on kind of that inner journey, evolutionary journey. And the combination of the two really has set me on a path with working with people over the years in different capacities, whether it's on health or finances, relationships. And I really did come to learn that it all stems from really inside. We all know it's an inside job, and connecting with our heart and soul. And so More Soul, Please is really kind of an embodiment of taking all parts of self and really simplifying so that we can know what we want, so we can let go of the things that are not serving us, and also in ways to enhance our life so that we feel joy and genuine happiness on a daily basis. So More Soul, Please it's all about soul, but in bringing it back to kind of real terms in real life, it's all about making sure that our bodies are optimal, that our relationships feel that they are loving, and our finances feel abundant and carefree.
I love that. That's beautiful. You created, because in your discovery, as you said, your mess became your, this beautiful process here. In that, you came up with, and everybody, you can find it on our site, it's the Soul Pledge. And will you share a little bit about it with us?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to. It came to me every morning. And this is one of the self-care practices that I do every morning. And before I get out of bed, I just put my hand over my heart. And I usually, no more than 10 seconds or so, but just, before my feet hit the floor, I give a little gratitude, and I just, what am I grateful for today? And one morning, what's called the Soul Pledge came to me, and it really came from, I think, it came to me in February, and the last couple months have been angst filled with all the political climate shifting and changing, and I felt it. I felt kind of the energy of that for people. And so I came up with the Soul Pledge, which is pledging allegiance to our soul. And it basically just says, I pledge allegiance to my soul. And from there, it just goes on about taking care of ourselves, honoring our body. And so the Soul Pledge is something that everyone can kind of refer back to whenever they are feeling a little off, or the relationships or just communications might not be quite right. But it really is a great way to kind of recenter and focus and ground. And then we can go back into whatever we're doing for our day and feel like we're doing it optimally and in the best health that we can.
That's wonderful. Something that I hear you talk about that I love is about simplifying, simplicity of the soul. And when we think about that, our soul is grand and great, and it enters as human life and the things we put on it. Would you share with us about simplifying and simplicity for the soul?
Oh, I would be happy to. And I have a little lighthearted term for it, and I call it, I just say just like in wherever we live, we might have a junk drawer. We also have the internal junk drawer as well. And so the idea of simplicity and what I like to call soulful simplicity is a way to really let go of a lifestyle that might not be serving us, and that doesn't mean the whole lifestyle, but pieces of it. And instead of chasing after a lifestyle, it's all about creating a soul style. And a soul style is what matters most to us. and not what society is telling us we should be or do or have. So to me, simplicity of the soul is really the ability to know just from a heart-centered place where we are in our own self-love as well as in our relationships with others. And when we're clear and centered on that, then so many of our choices that we make come from a place of gratitude, of feeling grounded, and we don't regret them. We are not in a situation where we do something one day and we wish we'd done something different, or we ate something that we say, oh, why did we eat that? We don't get into that tug of war in the mind. And so simplicity of the soul is really all about quieting the mind and quieting the left brain.
Beautiful.
Getting that left brain quiet, yes.
Now, you also talk about decluttering, and I know that it's similar, but people say, oh, I've seen about decluttering my drawers, decluttering my closet, decluttering my garage. Do you want to talk a little bit about decluttering here?
Sure. And I can talk both internal and external, as I mentioned a moment ago. Externally, I think what I have found in my own life, as well as, working with so many people who are on that mission to let go of a lot of physical things in their world. The more that we have, and I'd say the overall, the umbrella approach that I take with people is that, because this is what I see in them, the more we have around us, the more our minds are busy landing and focusing on those things that are around us. So when we can eliminate what is around us that just is not pleasing to our eye or fulfilling to our heart and soul, when we eliminate those things, we actually have so much more space inside of us. When we also let go of things, we also have the ability to put into focus the aspect of what that thing was and the meaning. We can keep it inside. It can be part of us forever. If it's a memory, if it's a special occasion, we can keep that inside. We don't have to keep it around. We don't have to have it hanging around. So that's kind of the external decluttering aspect. And I always say, bite-sized bits. Take it piece by piece, just one thing at a time. Never beat yourself up around it. It's go at the pace that feels right for you. And another little trick with the exterior decluttering would be put things in a box and then put the box in a closet, or if you have a garage, you could put it in a garage, but put it away and see if you miss it. If you don't miss it, then chances are it's not important to you anymore. And then from there, you don't even have to untape the box. You could actually donate it or gift it. And that's another great little tip to kind of soften the feeling in the heart of the angst that people have of feeling like they can't let go. And the internal decluttering really is talking about our belief system and maybe the thoughts and emotions that go along with that. So, what is our belief system? How are we looking at life? What lens are we looking through? And when we get really clear on what's most important, what our values are, what our non-negotiables are, those are two really important things, values and non-negotiables. And when we're really clear on those two things, then internally our nervous system can settle down. It can feel at rest. So in a nutshell, that's kind of talking about those two items for you.
Awesome, thank you. I want to talk a little bit about two things. One about the nervous system, and also about people who collect things, clutter bugs or pack rats or whatever the sweet little endearments that they're given. I noticed because I moved this past month, home and office, and so I noticed as you were talking, I have one bag.
Yeah, there's always one.
One bag with paperwork in it that I don't want to deal with. So why did we do that? And until you said that, I have not even seen it in a while. And it's right there. So do you know why we do that? Push it out, and why our brain does that to us? Because you've told us how to get into it, and then I want to wrap back around so people can sort of see it, a process.
Yes. So very often, so for you, for example, Mia, with having that bag, really there are a couple different approaches and questions that I would actually like to ask you about the bag. And they are, the first would be, as long as there aren't taxes or wills in that bag, things that are really, I always say to people, just, don't just throw a bag of paperwork out without checking what's in it first, because you just would hate to lose something that you really do need or that needs to be filed digitally. But with that bag, and I think for people, very often we put the bag aside and there is an internal, it's actually external and internal at the same time. There is an internal cue telling us that we really don't want to deal with it. And by having it in a bag and putting it in a corner and having a to-do list of other things, we keep putting the other things at the top of the list. We ignore what's there. And then ultimately, if whatever's in the bag isn't that important and can sit there and it's not going to affect anything, then yeah, it probably can be tossed. But sometimes that, I'll call it the guilt cycle, will kick in, and you will see the bag and you'll think, I really should go through it, and haven't I gone through it yet? And when that loop hits, my best advice to someone is just do it, like Nike says, just do it. And do it in a way, make a cup of tea, pour a glass of wine, put on a show that you like, put beautiful music on or light a candle, but actually create a little ritual around dealing with that item. It makes it much more, a more loving gesture, and it actually takes a task that you're kind of dreading and putting off and then pulls it into your brain and your nervous system as actually a calming activity. So these things that can actually stress us out can also become, if creating the right environment, it can also become the way we reduce stress. It can actually reduce your level of stress by creating a beautiful ceremony around dealing with it.
I really like that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, because that's so based in love, isn't it? To create a process of allowing yourself to just be relaxed with it. That's
Yes.
beautiful. So
Yes.
that was a process right there. That was awesome. Beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing I will share also is that it's a heart. So, and we're talking all about heart here too as well today, heart and love, being heart-centered. Very often these tasks that we have and things that we are avoiding or just kind of think like it's not that important, very often that is our left brain taking over, and it's that taskmaster brain. It's what I call the small self that kind of beats us up. And when we say, thank you, left brain, but I'm actually going to introduce the heart in, so I'm going to bring in the right brain as well. When you bring the two together, sometimes the left and right brain can kind of hold hands, and whatever feels insurmountable or boring, I mean, it could be something that feels too big to handle or so little, why bother? When you bring both parts of the brain together, that actually, it's almost like a mini meditation. It settles the whole nervous system. It can bring focus, it can bring clarity, and then all of a sudden you have an energy that you didn't have even 5 minutes ago to actually tackle the task.
I really love this concept about settling into relaxing your nervous system, because most people don't know what that is. Most people don't think about it, but it's that area that takes us out of the everyday stress chaos and bringing us, okay, so it's like you're running a marathon trying to get everything done, or you're relaxing listening to music. So there's a huge difference, right? One is not so great on the central nervous system, and the other one produces all sorts of beautiful hormones coming out that feel good.
Yes.
So interesting.
Mia, it's a subject that fascinates me. And I think that really we are living in a society that is so busy right now, and we have so many things pulling at us. And between the digital distractions and family distractions and work distractions, we have become a little bit of a distracted society. And one of the, I think, profound effects on our bodies physically is that our nervous system has not moved at the pace that our technology has. And so we're asking our bodies to handle and process at the speed of light. And our bodies, that's not what they're intended for. So with the nervous system, I think that really genuinely for people to settle their minds, quiet their minds, breathe. So breathing, quieting their minds, getting centered and still, and really listening to what they're feeling in their body. Like you can almost hear your body sometimes. And that central nervous system is going to be sending these indications that it's a little bit overwhelmed, and you can feel that sometimes when you're eating something, when you're just kind of, I'll call it mindlessly eating, just grabbing for something on the go or on the run. Very often we start to talk very fast. A lot of negative thoughts come in when the nervous system is starting to move too quickly. We actually get ourselves into a negative self-talk loop, and we don't even realize that it's our body signaling us that we need to slow down. When we get into that nervous energy, and maybe we go for the cup of coffee, or we think we need caffeine, our eyes are jumping from one project to another. All these things are little indications that your body's sending you these signals that it needs a rest. And it doesn't mean you have to take a nap or take, a long weekend. It can just be 5 minutes where you close your eyes, take your eyes off everything, and go into a quiet room. And even if you're at work, if you have an office job, even into the ladies' room, or just step outside into a lobby or into an area that's quiet, and just take deep breaths. Deep diaphragmatic breaths will just soothe the nervous system and quiet the mind like nothing else does.
So the deep breathing, I love to do it throughout the day. How many times, continue everybody breathing, how many times a day, if somebody wants to start off with their breath work, how many times a day would you suggest that they even set their alarm so that they're reminded to do it, becomes a habit? How many times a day would you recommend?
Well, I love that question, and but not for the reason people might think. Actually, I love that question because we need to remind ourselves in a loving way, because it can become punishment where, oh my gosh, and we're looking at our watches, I'm supposed to check in with my breathing. So that my first tip on breathing is to let it be something natural, and yes, give yourself a reminder, but make sure that it's not in kind of the crack the whip kind of way. It's in more of a, oh yeah, I need to remember to breathe. I think I'll do that right here. So there's some great apps out there that are kind of their meditation apps, their calming apps, their mindfulness apps, just ways to quiet your mind. And they actually have alarms that they will send you a text, and it doesn't even have to ring. You can set it on silent, but you'll get a little flash across your screen and it'll remind you. So there's some wonderful digital ways to get that reminder. And the other tip that I have for that is that if it's something that you just remind yourself of in terms of putting it on the notes, putting it in a note form, or a rubber band around the wrist or something like that, then that can sometimes help people just give themselves that tool and that moment to quiet everything.
Love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
It is, people talk about the rubber band method, and I don't know why, but I always think, ouch, that's going to hurt. But I guess because we are aware that, at some point we become aware that things are on our wrist.
And it's not that we're snapping the wrist. It's just having that little.
Please don't snap your wrist.
Exactly.
We want you to send love to you, not pain.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Yes, and it's having something around. So, and I like it. That's a really good point, Mia, because also we can do things like put a little sticker on our cell phone, or take that rubber band and wrap it around our keys, so that when we grab our keys, we see the rubber band that reminds us to breathe. It really just is taking something that we're unconscious of and bringing it to the forefront to be more conscious of.
It's lovely. Yeah, it really is. And I love the Thank you for sharing about the app, because I personally don't like notifications coming across my phone, but something like that would be really lovely.
Yes.
That would support me. I wear a Fitbit sometimes, most of the
Yes.
time, and
Yep.
that thing, it'll tell me if I'm sitting too long at my desk working. It'll say, let's dance, let's rock, get up, because it asks you to set it. Do you want to be, are you a man, are you a woman, are you gentle, or so
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
let's dance. So that's really
Exactly.
wonderful.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it is all about bringing that unconscious to the conscious mind. And I don't mean that in an even in an energetic sense. It's more of just if we don't know what we don't know, or we don't remember what we haven't done. So it's about creating a habit that we then become aware of, so that it becomes like brushing our teeth.
Mm-hmm. And when we're aware of it, that's where the soulfulness comes in, doesn't it?
Yes,
That
very
connection
much
to,
so.
yeah.
Yes, yes,
That's
yeah.
why I love the self love that you brought, the speaking into here, because they literally are connected, since the self love opens up our ability to be connected to our soul.
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful.
That is, I think that really is that says it all. That is where it all starts. And it's loving ourselves. Self-love at the soul level really does allow us to open up to every possibility in life, and it just elevates us in all of our health, in our finances, and in our relationships. It can't be stressed enough. I know that it's stated in a lot of different ways by a lot of different people, but I think there is just so much just raw truth to it that it's something worth repeating.
Now, someone is off, I don't want to say off balance, but that is the way in which it might appear. What
Mhm.
what tools or techniques would you offer, suggest,
Mhm.
to bring them back on course? And some people have never even thought before hearing this, that there is the ways in which to balance out literally your life. I mean, together, when you're consciously aware that you want that smoothness, that harmony, it does bring that balance.
Yes, yes. Really, I think that for getting very clear, and I'm going to refer back to something that I mentioned just a little while ago. When we're really clear on what our values are, not what society says they should be, but what our own values are, and then creating a little list of what I call non-negotiables. And when we have those two things, when we know what our values are and we know what our non-negotiables are, and between those two, we can then create an inner garden that we have these options that are available to ourselves. And those tools, I think, so now talking about the specific tools, so those are kind of skills that we can implement and teach ourselves. And then from a tool perspective, I would suggest that really the best thing to do whenever we're feeling off balance is to step back and actually separate our thoughts from our feelings and try to look at it with more objectivity than subjectivity. So if we can step back and even talk to ourselves in a way that we would talk to a very best friend. And when we do that and separate ourselves from the situation specifically, we become more objective and we can look at it with a little bit more of an open eye than that kind of closed perspective. And that also speaks to communication as well. So when we're a little off balance, we might not be the best communicators. I know that's really true for me. When I'm not feeling myself, whether it's because of a lack of sleep or too much work on any particular day, when something just doesn't feel quite right,
Right.
and I try to communicate, so often it doesn't come out the way I intended or even how I'm feeling. So that the other tip I have is sometimes being an introvert is a good thing. Getting really quiet and just not sharing in that moment. It's still going to be there and you can always address it. But if you can just get quiet and let it process inside of you for a little while, then ultimately you're going to then share with whoever you need to share with in a more optimal way.
Wonderful. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you all are hearing this, but there is some noise in between our Skype. Sometimes it sounds like angel wings, sometimes it's truck sounds. What it is, it's the energy getting our attention here. So just want to make those of you who are new to this type of thing, this is the way we live our life all the time.
Yes,
Sometimes
yes.
I'm talking with Allison on Skype and we're like, wow, do you hear the angels? I mean, it's very, very cool. So
Yes.
if you it's picked up on the recording and you hear it, just enjoy it. It's just it's lovely. Wonderful. There's something that you created that I absolutely love, and those are called soul stamps. Would you like to share that with us?
Sure. They're cards. They are in email form as well. I have an email form version as well as physical cards, and they are tarot. They are not tarot size actually. They're bridge size cards. So they're little what I call pocket cards, and they are bite-sized bits of wisdom, and they're really bite-sized bits of coaching wisdom. So these cards are in these decks, and each one has a thought that really has a little bit of a coaching spin to it. And so some of them are affirmational, but for the most part, they actually kind of get us to, I love that you asked this, Mia, because they actually help us get into a more objective way of thinking about a situation that we might be in. If you pull a card, and one of them, for example, talks about being triggered. And are you feeling triggered today? And so just pulling that card, reading it, it can actually help you step back outside of the thoughts that you're having around an issue. And you see it from a more holistic perspective. So that's the idea behind the cards, that they're little bite-sized bits that can help people throughout the day whenever they might need a little boost.
I love that. And on the back of the card is a glorious photograph.
Yes.
So
yes.
It's a twofer there.
Exactly. And that's very intentional. The idea is I really do believe in bringing in all the senses in everything that we do in our life. And that actually goes back to the idea of, Mia, your bag of paperwork, and then bringing some things in that can surround you, whether it's with sound or scent or something visually appealing. But the cards too, the same thing, that each picture is meant to soothe the senses, and then the quote is really meant to soothe the soul. So it's soothing the soul and the senses at the same time.
Yeah, beautiful. And I have to go back to that bag because
yes.
As you were talking, I zeroed in on why that bag is there but not seen and there and seen. And that is because when I was moving, I was stressed in that moment of gathering that stuff. So so because the stress of that, I guess, is still attached to the bag. So guess what Mina's going to do today with some beautiful music and some lovely tea.
I love that. Take a picture and send it to me.
I will.
Yeah, and you just made such an that might be such an important aspect to holding on to anything, whether it is in our physical junk drawer or our internal cellular junk drawer. When we have a feeling that is attached to it, when we attach a feeling or an emotion, it is going to set the course for that entire event. And so if you have that relational, if you remember that feeling of being stressed because you needed to move, you needed to close in a certain time, you had to get out by a certain time, then everything that is associated with that bag, every time you see that bag, you're going to associate with throwing everything in the back of your car so you could get out by 4 p.m. And so that's going to go into that drawer. It's going to go into that internal junk drawer. And until you are consciously moving it out, saying, thank you, you served me. I needed you at 4 p.m. You got me out of the house in time. But you've done your job. I'm going to let you go now. And that's what you can do with the bag.
It's beautiful because that's what we do with all of our life as far as bringing nourishment and enrichment to it, or love type stuff, is we allow us to feel it, see it, thank it, and then move on. So that's wonderful. That's
yes.
awesome.
Yeah. I love it.
I know, me too. Thank you. You have a free gift for us. Would you like to share it? It's lovely.
Sure, I would love to. Yeah, I have actually. It's an e-booklet that I've created that talks to all of these senses, bringing all the senses in, and it's called 7 Days, 7 Ways for Simplicity of the Soul, and it's finding self-love at the soul level. And it's while it's the title's very soulful, it is also a very practical book. I do take you through 7 journal prompts. There are these soul stamp cards that offer wisdom for each particular question, and so you can kind of read it and think about it and then kind of write down your answers. But it's to move everybody through the process of going, from maybe feeling unconsciously they don't know why something's bothering them, into a more conscious space of where they kind of get it and then they release it. And that's where the simplicity comes in, when we can identify and release what might be, at the edge of our mind or bothering us a little bit. That's when we release that's when that freedom kind of floods us. And there's also a meditation to support the booklet.
It's wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have been here, Mia, and it's a pleasure, and thank you again.
Thank you. Would you like to leave us with something soulful?
I certainly would. I would say to everybody, take a moment and put your both hands over your heart, close your eyes, and take a pledge that you are worth it. That your heart, your big heart, and your divine spirit are all that's needed. That's all that's needed. And if you do that however many times a day, even if it's just once, just remind yourself with your hands over your heart that you're all that you need. I'd say that's something that will fill you with love.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mia.
And thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you in another episode of Natural Balance. Thank you. Bye.